What's up everybody, Garrett back here. And what I want to do today is I wanted to go through my top 10 favorite vampire films of all time, with Abigail coming out, and people seem to have loved it. I've actually heard nothing but great things about Abigail. Unfortunately, I have not seen it yet, but I'm really looking forward to it. So when you take the subgenre of vampires, you kind of find that people are on both ends of the fence about it. Some people love vampire movies, some people don't really care for vampire movies. I'm on the side of I love vampire movies. It was actually really hard for me to make this list. So I made sure when I made this list, I wanted to go, there's no Dracula on my list. So if you were Dracula in a movie, you were not eligible to make this list. So I wanted to go about this a little bit different, and I really had to narrow it down to 10. I mean, I really had about 15 outside of the Dracula stuff to really focus on, but I had to narrow it down. So this was difficult. So I'll let you know at the end of this, I'll give a couple of my honorable mentions of ones that didn't make my top 10 list, but this is ranked, guys. So this list is ranked, and I'll go through each one now, and hopefully there's some in here that maybe you've never seen. When it comes to vampire movies, I'm all about the fun aspect of vampire movies, but I'm also about slow burn, different type of vampire movies as well. So that's what you're going to kind of see mixed up in here. So let's get to my number 10, and that is 1997's The Night Flyer. This is a Stephen King adaptation. It was on HBO in 1997. It actually got pretty good reviews on HBO, that they actually put it out in theaters for a little bit. I think maybe just a short little run because of how well it did on HBO. So that is The Night Flyer. Now, very, very cool movie. Unfortunately, this is like all we have as far as physical media. It hasn't gotten any release outside of DVD and VHS, but nothing more current than this. So this little snapper case here is, I think, the most recent version of this movie you can get. So The Night Flyer from 1997, what I like about this is it's just a different take on vampires, number one. And number two, the special effects are really good. It's done by K&B, so we know that these are really killer. And this is definitely something to be seen. The vampire in this looks so badass. I absolutely love it. It's one to be seen, and I don't know if a lot of people have actually seen this one. It's coming in at my number 10, and that is Night Flyer. All right, so my number 9 is coming from 1992, and it's a John Landis flick. It's one not many people talk about, and that is Innocent Blood. You may have seen this image on video store shelves growing up, but this is a real cool movie, guys. It basically takes the vampire genre and almost like that mafia or mob genre and kind of blends them together. So it's almost like John Landis Scorsese type movie here, and it involves a vampire, this time a female vampire, and she kind of gets herself caught up with the mafia, with the mob, and it's really, really cool. So guys, this is different, but at the same time, it's really cool. It's not so fast-paced, but it's a great story here. There's a cop, he kind of gets involved with the mob, and they meet this woman, and all hell kind of breaks loose from there. So very, very cool movie, kind of like a whodunit type of thing. So I highly recommend Innocent Blood. Very, like I said, different. It's one I've always loved, and it's one that not many people ever talk about. So that made it to my number 9 list of my favorite vampire films. All right, number 8 is one that came out, I believe, in 2008. It actually is a Swedish film, and that is Let the Right One In. I know that this has a lot of fans, and I also will say that the American version, Let Me In, with Chloe Grace Moretz, is actually a really good remake or adaptation of this movie for the States, and I really highly recommend that. That could have easily went on this list as well. I think these are pretty almost even keel with each other. There's a little bit of differences, but I do think that this one is a little bit better, a little bit darker. There's some elements in this that you don't get in Let Me In, which I think is really cool to the story. Now, I did see this in theaters, so it did have a theatrical run here in the States for a short time. I actually saw it at kind of more of a local artsy theater here in my state, and I absolutely loved it. Very, very good. The kids are great in this. I just think this is fantastic. Let the Right One In. If you haven't seen this, I would definitely check it out. And if you haven't seen Let Me In either, I would recommend getting that as well. So Let the Right One In is definitely making my top 10 list at number 8. All right, number 7 is a super fun vampire movie, kind of a different take on vampire movies. It's almost pretty much 2 movies in one, but man, when this thing gets going, it is super fun. And that is From Dusk Till Dawn, a Robert Rodriguez film here. You have George Clooney and Quentin Tarantino in here as well. Harvey Keitel is in this. You've got people like Danny Trejo is in this. You've got Tom Savini, Juliette Lewis, all-star cast here. And what I like about From Dusk Till Dawn, it's basically a bank robber story. and it pretty much goes with that storyline for the majority of this movie. And then all of a sudden, there's one point in the movie where it just turns into a totally different movie, which involves vampires. And I just think it was such a cool turn. It's funny because I don't remember how this was marketed back in the day. Like I said, it came out in 96, so I don't think I saw this in theaters. I think I got this on VHS, but I wasn't sure exactly how it was marketed as a vampire flick or not. I really am not sure, but it is one of those movies that when I saw this for the first time, I was kind of taken back on how cool this thing got. And when you do see the vampires, I actually think that they look really cool. There are a little bit of CGI, that 90s CGI that comes in. But more or less, the practical effects are really cool here. Great cast of characters, super fun. Highly recommend From Dusk Till Dawn. I'm sure a lot of you would have this on your top 10 list, and it definitely deserves it. All right, number 6 on my list. I had to do it this way. I didn't want to combine things. This is such a great vampire movie. Not enough people have probably seen this just because it's been so hard to obtain for a long time. But 1988's Fright Night 2 is a great vampire film. This is one that I saw right when I saw the original Fright Night as a kid. It was a double bill on TV on like a Saturday morning, and I saw both of them for the first time, and I absolutely fell in love with both of these movies. Fright Night 2 is a really good sequel. You got some of the cast coming back from the original. Different take here. Now all of a sudden it's Jerry Dandridge's sister that's involved in here, and it's really, really cool. Unfortunately, like I said, you're gonna have to kind of dig for this movie. The DVD has been long out of print. There is no Blu-ray here in the States. You can get one overseas, or you can probably come up with a bootleg, but hopefully this Fright Night 2 gets a real cool release in the future. I know it has its trouble, but guys, if you haven't checked out Fright Night 2, I highly recommend trying to find it. It's a real cool sequel in my opinion, and I know for sure it's not going to be on everybody's top 10 list, but it is on mine. All right, we are in my top 5 now. Number 5 coming out of my list is from 1986, and it's a movie called Vamp. This has Grace Jones in it. We've got a big cast of characters in here. Robert Russler, Dee Pfeiffer. I mean, it's got a real cool cast here. It's about a group of kids that go to a strip club and they run into some vampires. Now, from there, kind of all hell breaks loose. Very, very cool 80s vampire movie. Does not get enough love, in my opinion. This is the Blu-ray from Arrow. If you've never seen this movie, I think this is a real great addition. So, again, Vamp from 1986 is definitely one to check out because it is my number 5 on my favorite vampire movies of all time. All right, number 4, keeping it in the 80s, is from 1987, and that is going to be Near Dark. Man, Near Dark is just a real cool movie. It kind of has a Western element to it, something different that we weren't used to seeing around that time. Great cast of characters here. I mean, you've got Jenny Wright. I loved Jenny Wright in the 80s. Lance Hendrickson. You've got the one and only Bill Paxton, who plays such a great character here, amongst other people that you've recognized from other movies. Now, again, Near Dark, very, very good. Like I said, it's one of those movies that's just a different take on vampires. I know a lot of people say this is their favorite vampire movie of the 80s. I know some people that just can't get with Near Dark because it is a little bit slower than most vampire movies around that time, but man, super stylish, and I think you guys are gonna really love this one. This is another movie that's kind of out of print. It's hard to come by. I know this Blu-ray kind of came and went, but yeah, Near Dark is number 4 on my list. All right, the top 3. These 3 could go either way depending on the day that we talk about it. I absolutely love these 3 movies. These 3 movies are in my top 10 horror movies of all time. Number 3 that made the list is from 1979, and it's right here, and that is Salem's Lot. This was a made-for-TV movie, but it's probably one of the coolest movies I think I've ever seen in my life. The slow burn on this, the payoff, the storytelling, I just love this. It was another Stephen King joint. Toby Hooper. This is just fantastic. My uncle has so many stories about this movie. When this aired on TV in 1979, he was a little kid and said how freaked out he was riding his bike home from his friend's house after watching this thing. And man, it's no joke. I absolutely love Salem's Lot. I know this is definitely a movie that a lot of people maybe aren't down with because it is very slow. It's very long. This was actually 2 parts when it came out back in the day. So it is a long movie, but I just feel like this movie just does everything right. It's super creepy, super effective. Barlow is just amazing in this. I don't know what else to say about Salem's Lot. I absolutely love this movie. So it's definitely made my list, no doubt. So I don't know what else to say about this, but guys, I would say give this thing a shot. If you've watched it before and didn't like it, I would say give it a shot again and just really just try to sit down, focus on it, and just let this story play out. It is fantastic. And again, that's Salem's Lot, making my number 3 favorite vampire films of all time. All right, so I'm sure you know, if you've been watching this channel a long time, you pretty much know what my top 2 are. And again, these can go back and forth. These are 2 of my all-time favorite horror movies. These are gonna be probably in my top 5 favorite horror movies of all time. This was a hard choice. It's a very hard decision, but I'm gonna have to go this way. This is going to be my number 2, and it's 1986 Fright Night. I don't know what else to say about this. I've talked about this on my channel before. On the Radpack podcast, we talked about this movie before. Man, this is one of the horror movies that really got me to fall in love with horror. Like I said before, I saw this on a Saturday morning, double billed with part 2, and I absolutely just fell in love with it. It resonated a lot with me because I grew up in the suburbs, so this really was something that really hit home with me. It made me feel like I was in that neighborhood. I was Charlie Brewster. I don't know what else to say. The cast of characters in this are fantastic. The story is fantastic. Tom Holland does such a great job. The prosthetics, the special effects, everything just works here. It's such a great story when you think your neighbor is a vampire and you're trying to figure it out. I mean, what else could be cooler of a story? Fright Night, guys. I'm assuming everybody out there watching this has seen this movie. Now, would it be their number 2? I don't know, but I rarely hear anybody say anything negative about this movie. It's just so good, and everybody in it does such a great job, and man, it's definitely one to check out. All right, my number 1 vampire movie of all time, my favorite. And if you're watching this channel a long time, you knew this was coming. If you're looking at my list, you know this is coming. And this is 1987's The Lost Boys. I'm such a huge Corey Haim fan. So obviously, anything that he was in, I was checking out. This is just unreal. I mean, it's one of those movies. Do I think Fright Night has a better story? Yes, but I just think this is so fun. This is just, to me, it's, as much as it seems so 80s, to me this feels timeless. I mean, it's just such a great movie. I mean, the cast you have here, Jason Patric, you've got Kiefer Sutherland, Corey Feldman, Corey Haim, amongst others. It's just insane on how good this really is. It's just super cool, and I don't know many people that have a lot of negative to say about The Lost Boys. This may not be their number 1 on the list, but it's definitely going to be in probably their top 5. And that is The Lost Boys from 1987, which is taking my number 1 spot in my favorite vampire movies of all time. All right, so you saw my list. Now, let me know yours down in the comments section below. Now, if I had to choose some other movies that I wanted to talk about here that could have made this list, things like John Carpenter's Vampires was up there. Things like Kochek the Night Stalker. I mean, that's a movie that I love, and not many people have actually seen it, so that was in the mix. Things like Blade. I mean, there's so many cool vampire movies from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and even movies that I am not familiar with. We're talking things in the Hammer era and all that stuff. So again, this is such a cool subgenre, and I absolutely love it. So guys, what I want to see is I want you to let me know down below what you think of my list, and I want you to tell me your top 10 favorite vampire movies of all time. And thank you for checking this out. This is Garrett at Born2beRad, and like always, stay rad.